What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and I am back with another edition of the betting show with your top 5 bets for the week in the world of mixed martial arts. And we're London Central this weekend as Cage Warriors goes down on Friday night, and on Saturday night the UFC brings the Octagon back to the O2 in London with a big heavyweight clash in the main event on a card that is, it's not a bad card. You would expect a little bit better for one of the biggest countries and one of the biggest cities in the world, and one of the busiest cities in the world, I suppose. But there's a lot of local talent and they're in some good matches, so we won't complain. We won't complain too much about it. The Cage Warriors card the night before, I have a preview up for it. You know, in terms of matchmaking, in terms of quality, that's right up there, I think, with the UFC card. It's very, very good. Obviously, the very top might be a little bit different, but I think the level of future UFC fighters that are on that is massive, and it's very, very interesting card as well. So, massive weekend for UK MMA, and we'll all be tuned into it, I suppose, on Friday and Saturday. Before we get to next week, though, let's look back at last week, and anyone who tuned into last week's show will be fairly happy tuning into this week, because we hit all 5 bets last week. The first time I have done it this year anyway. I remember I only started keeping records at the start of the year, but I think I might have done it once before I started keeping records at the start of the year. But this year I've hit 3 and a Flier, maybe 2 or 3 times. I've hit 4 out of 4 and missed the Flier, but this time I hit 4 out of 4 and hit the Flier. So absolutely fantastic week. Just to recap the bets, Amir Ali Akbar at -196. I said I thought that price was low at -196. I actually think it went down a little bit. I saw some on the comment section yesterday, and so leave your bet for this week in the comment section below. Let me know what you're betting on, and I'll reply to you below there. But someone said it went into -180 at one stage during the week, so I couldn't believe that price. Great price there. Bonmat did exactly what I predicted he would do. Took the fight to the ground at stages and was able to win the fight there. Plus 242. What a bet that was. I kind of had 2 half Flyers this week. We'll get the other one in a second. Norma Dumont -143. I think that price actually went in a little bit as well, so you could have got a little bit better than that. You know, dominated the fight. Pretty easy win for her there, as did Sebastian Pibish, who got the finish. I gave him inside the distance -200, and then Bueno Silva +300 to win inside the distance, which she did in the second round against Holly Holm for the Flyer of the week. So overall, our record has improved because of that. 47 of 94 overall, 47 of 94, and 11 of the 24 Flyers have hit, which I think that's phenomenal. I think 47 of 94 is, par for the course, although I do give plus money bets most of the time, so I think that's pretty good. I love if someone, I actually have all the bets and have all the prices. I'd love if someone actually went back and saw, like, let's say you put, I don't know, you put 10 quid on every bet for the whole year. Would you be up or down money? I probably need to do that myself sometime, but I feel like that's extremely time consuming. If anyone out there wants to do it, give me a message and I'll send you on all the bets. But you definitely be making money anyway in the Flyers, because nearly half of them have hit, and more, all of them have been over, plus 300-ish, and some of them plus, 500, plus 700. So delighted. I'm actually really, really delighted with how this year has gone in terms of the tips. I wasn't expecting to do this well, to be honest, and long may it continue. So let's go and look ahead to next week. I've gone with 2 bets from Cage Warriors and 3 bets from the UFC. I'm going to start off with a bet from the UFC. Then I'll move to my 2 Cage Warriors bets, and I'll finish off with 2 from the UFC. And the first bet I'm going to go for is, and I'm surprised to see this price, honestly, it's Shauna Bannon at plus 120 in her fight over Bruna Brasil. Now, when I was kind of preparing myself for this, I went in and looked at the odds, and sometimes you're expecting someone to be a certain price and they're just not that at all, and usually it goes the other way. Usually expecting, maybe this is even money, maybe they're minus 120, and then they turn around, it's like, they're minus 275 or something. But I was expecting Shauna to be not a sizable favourite, but, you know, I'm looking here. Bruna Brasil is minus 150. Shauna's plus 120. In a couple of places, I see she's actually plus 125 here in another place as well. But I was expecting her to be that sort of favourite and maybe a little bit more of a favourite, just because I suppose Bruna Brasil has been a little bit exposed in the UFC in terms of, and when I say exposed, I mean we kind of know what kind of a fighter she is more than I suppose a lot of people would know with Shauna. But that's not the case, and these are the odds here, and I think it's pretty good odds. Now, this fight is an interesting one to break down because, you know, Bruna Brasil has been doing good stuff until her last fight. You know, she'd won, like 7 in a row or something like that before it, and got, you know, a few finishes in there, a few submissions and all of that, until she kind of met Denise Gomez, and she had problems. You know, she got knocked out in the end, but we saw how good Denise Gomez was last time out then as well. But I think, look, if you're looking at this fight and you are aware of the way Shauna Bannon fights, I think you're kind of like, oh, this is a good match for Shauna. Now, does that necessarily mean she'll win? No, but the reason I'm picking her, the reason why I think that's a good price, is twofold, really. First of all, I think Bruna Brasil will want to strike with Shauna, right? And I think Bruna Brasil wants to strike with everyone. I think that's the way she wants to fight. And if you were to go and look at Shauna's Invicta fights especially, you know, and I'm lucky I'm here in Ireland, so I've seen the ones outside of the Invicta fights as well, you know, because, and maybe everyone doesn't have the privilege of doing that because, you know, not everything is widely available. Although I do think they're probably on YouTube, I suppose. But the Invicta fights are the ones that most people would see. And in those Invicta fights, you know, for large periods anyway, Shauna was doing a lot of wrestling and grappling. You'd almost be forgiven for thinking, oh, Shauna, she's a bit of a wrestler, is she? But she's not. You know, she is a point fighting taekwondo kicker, striker. You know, her sister, she was out with her there a couple of weeks ago. She won, I think, a bronze medal in the European point fighting championships. She was on the news and everything after winning. That's where Shauna comes from. That's the background she is. You know, her father had her and her sister, and he was a trainer himself, and loads of other people as well, obviously, in the gym when she was really young, and that's the way she wants to fight. But she's went to the gym where Paddy Hoolan was, and we all know Paddy Hoolan from his stint in the UFC, a very good all-rounder fighter, but a very good grappler and a jiu-jitsu guy to boot. And she has learned that, and she's brought that into her game, and she's used it in her game an awful lot as well. So the point there, and why I say twofold is, well, if Bruna wants to strike with Shauna's been striking her whole life, and Bruna's fighting that kind of point fighting style, and Shauna's a very, very high level point fighting style. I think she's won, you know, championships all over the place, and her dream was to go to the Olympics, and it was politics more than quality that stopped her from doing that. And look what her sister is doing now as well. She is well able to fight in that style. Plus, if she needs to against Bruna, and she has shown that she can change things up, she can take the fight to the ground, and she can fight there as well if needed. Now, as I mentioned, Bruna, you know, she will want to strike, but she has a few submissions and stuff. You know, she's a few guillotines and different things on her records. But when you do see guillotines, it's usually, you know, you're getting taken down and and you catch on the guillotine. So, I think it's a good matchup for Shauna, if I'm being honest. Now, it's only a good matchup if she can make it a good matchup, and if, you know, Bruna is a better grappler or if she is a better striker, we'll see. Look, they're both fairly young in their career. You know, Bruna's only 11, 12 fights, Shauna's only 5 fights, so there could be big changes and big differences between what has happened recently and what has happened now. But from what I've seen out of Shauna, what her background is, this is a matchup I think that's kind of made for her. And I see that price of plus 120. I think it's a good one. You know, I really think it's a good price for plus 120. Now, maybe you said there's a bit of Irish bias there or whatever, and maybe there is, and we'll see. But it's one of those bets, and people who watch this show will know I'm consistent with this. It's one of those bets that you take now because you'll never get it again, right? So it'll either be, if Shauna goes in there and loses, it'll go one way. But if she goes in there and wins, this sort of fight against this sort of opponent, she'll be minus 250 for the next time. You get me? You know? If she goes in there and, say, dominates or gets the finish or, you know, wins a good unanimous decision, it could be very different because Shauna's going to do nothing but improve. in her upcoming fight. So, yeah, I like the price. I'm willing to take the chance at that price. Look, we'll throw in a little bit of Irish bias there as well. But I'm going for Shauna, Mama B Bannon in her UFC debut to get the win at plus 120. Right, let's get to the Cage Warriors bets and let's look at the two of these. And you know what? I'm going for two old school Cage Warriors veterans to get the wins here. And the first one, I'm going for James Webb in the main event. Again, another one I was kind of surprised to see the price of. He is the underdog at plus 110 against Mick Stanton, who's minus 150. Now, James Webb is the challenger. Mick Stanton is the champion. Mick Stanton put on a great display in his last fight, but the two of these lads fought a couple of years ago and James Webb won. Now, it's been very differing career paths, I suppose, for both of them since. For Webb, oh God, how long ago was it? This fight seems like it was a long time ago, but it was only in 2020, you know, and it was kind of the March madness, if you want to put it that way. It was really mad, and the Craig White win after that, but then he lost 2 in a row, and then he came back with the Paddy McCarry win. But for Stanton, it's been it's been a little bit different. He's had a lot of fights since that fight. He lost 2, won 3, lost 1, won 2. You know, a lot of fights there, culminating in the title fight against Will Curry last time out. Now, I think that Will Curry fight will either show... Look, depending on how you analyse this fight, you can easily argue that he will either win this fight because of that or he will lose this fight because of that fight. And I'll tell you for why, right? So, right. We'll go back to their first fight. Webb and Stanton, 2020. Webb took him down over and over and over and beat him like that, right? Webb actually landed a beautiful knee to the liver at the start of the first round, I believe it was. It was, yeah. And hurt him on the feet as well. So it wasn't just wrestling, but he wrestled him and he won the fight because of his wrestling, his top game and his good shots landed, right? So that's grand. We go to Mick Stanton's last fight against Will Curry back in March, and he won that fight despite the wrestling. So Will Curry took him down over and over and over, but he was able to get this lovely Kimura sweep. It's a very unique fight. If you want to see a fight that you don't see very often, it's on Fight Pass. Go back and watch that. Will Curry against Mick Stanton. He kept turning him over, landing on top, getting out, because he was using the kind of the Kimura sweep and getting out all the time. But the thing about it was, Will Curry was getting on top. He was getting takedowns. He had the ability to take him down. So, why I say you can either say he'll win or lose this fight because of that. If he's able to sweep Webb all the time like he did in that fight, he's a great chance. He'll probably do the same thing again. But if he gets taken down all the time by James Webb like he did in that fight, you would think it's going to be very hard, considering that's how he lost the fight the same way the last time. And that's kind of the way I'm leaning. I think it's all well and good finding yourself in a bad position and making the best of it. It's better to not get yourself in the bad position in the first time, in the first place. I was reading, what was it? I was reading something the other day. What is it? A smart person finds solution for problems. A wise person doesn't get problems in the first place. And I think that's where we kind of are with Mick Stanton here. But if he is able to keep it on the feet as well, he has vicious power. And he, when he gets on top, he's good ground and pound. I think it's all about the takedown here. I think pure and simple. If Webb can get him down and not just the takedown, but the takedown and the ability to get the top control. And you know me now with my top control, but bear with me. If Webb can take him down and control him on top, I think Webb has changed his game over the last while too, to land more shots when he gets on top. So we won't be talking about just top control. If he does that, he'll win the fight, I think. If the height and hammer stops him from doing that, I think it'll turn the fight the other way. But I just think Webb is very heavy on top, very good on top. Sometimes Webb's biggest issue is actually getting the fight to the ground. But if he can do that against Stanton, who's still, even in his last fight, shown that is an issue for him, I think it's advantage Webb. And honestly, I'm surprised to see that price. Webb, he can strike as well. Sometimes we forget that. I was talking to Brad about that. If you haven't checked out the preview yet, please do. But he's well able to strike. If he chooses to do it. But I do think it'll be fought that way and it'll be won that way. So that is it, straight up plus 110 for James Webb in the Cage Warriors main event. The next bet I'm going for is an interesting one, because I actually think this bet is, do you know what? I think it's a great bet. I'm going for Madars-Fleminas against Daniel Skibinski in Cage Warriors. And Fleminas is plus 120. Now, I've come on here a few times and talked about Skibinski and talked about how good he is, right? And he is a very, very good fighter. But in Cage Warriors so far, he's had a tough enough time of it. Now, he beat O'Neil Brown last time out, absolutely good performance. But before that, he lost to Jimmy Wallhead, lost to Justin Burlinson. Now, Jimmy Wallhead, Justin Burlinson, what did they have in common? Well, they're the last two opponents of the champ right now, who's, well, the ex-champ, I suppose you call him, who's gone to the UFC, Rhys McKee. So he's fighting at the very, very top level. But Madars-Fleminas, I think, is the very top level there as well. And I think he could very well be fighting for a title in his next fight if he wins this for the vacant title. Like, he's beat Ben Elliott a couple of years ago, who's fighting for a UFC contract in a few weeks. He beat Jesse Urholin, who's fighting against, funny enough, O'Neil Brown this weekend. He beat Mick Stanton, who's a champion at the weight class above. He beat George Hardwick, who's a champion at the weight class below. He beat Matt Bonner, a former champion. He's beaten some unbelievable fighters. Beat Alexei Mantakivi last time out as well, another of Rhys McKee's former opponents. You know, the only guys to beat him over the last few years are people who have held either held the championship in it, or someone like Carlo Pedersoli Jr., who is, a very, very good fighter as well. Like, I think that Ben Elliott fight and the way he fought in that fight is how he's going to have to fight here again, I think, against Skibinski. Like, we know, if you know what Skibinski, if you've watched him, you know what he's like. You know, he is a guy who, he's not the biggest finisher in the world, but he's strong and he's tough, and he will put it on you when he needs to put it on you, and he won't make anything easy on you. But you have to do, I think, against a guy like Skibinski, is do exactly what Fleminas does. Meet him in the middle, push him back, and take the initiative. And that's almost simply why I'm picking him in this fight. I think he'll be able to do it. I think he'll be able to get the odd takedown. And this is a massive fight as well for Fleminas. Like, Skibinski is 32 years of age. He's had loads of fights. He's been around. But for Fleminas, he's 35 now. This is it. I think this is kind of the last run of his career. And he is someone, with all the names I called out there, that should have been a reigning champion in Cage Warriors for a while, or should have been in the UFC, should have been talked about getting the UFC. He's almost, taken too many hard fights to do that. But I believe in the way Skibinski, Fleminas fights. I like Skibinski as well. I think he's a very, very good fighter. But you put the two of them in there, you put this big challenge in front of Fleminas, and I think he'll be able to rise to the occasion. I really do. And with that, I think sometimes with Fleminas, if he has something kind of in front of him, like after that, coming into that Oban Elliott fight, is like, well, this guy, he's this big prospect. Jesse Holland, this guy is this big prospect, and he takes him down. Now he has the title is there. The title is there. All I have to do is take Skibinski down. Let's take him down. And I think he'll do it. And that's why I'm going from plus 120, the Latvian Express, to get the win over Daniel Skibinski. Right. Last couple of bets here from the UFC. Bet number 4. I'm going for a bet in the main event, and I was very surprised actually when I saw this price as well. Now, maybe others aren't, but the bet, first of all, I'll give it to you. Bet number 4, Aspinall versus Tybura over a round and a half at plus 140 is the bet I'm going for. Now, so what does that mean? The fight has to go more than 7.5 minutes, basically. Either guy can win after that and go to the decision. Whatever happens, your bet wins at 7 minutes 51 seconds. Or 7 minutes 31 seconds even. I'm going with numerical rather than time there. I just have a feeling that this fight is going to be a little bit longer and a little bit, maybe not tougher than like a walk in the park for Aspinall, but like, you know, Tybura is a guy who's been finished a few times, right? A few times in his career. He's been finished inside that mark, I think, only once in his career, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not as if he's getting knocked out early all the time, you know, and I'm looking here on Sherdog, it is only once he's been finished inside a round and a half. You know, he lost to Volkov, he lost by decision. Sakai did knock him out in the first round, but it was the second round against Shami. Derek Lewis went to the third round, he went to the fifth round with Verdum Johnson, it was the fifth round against Stefan Puitz back in 2015. So yeah, only once, right? And like, in fairness now, Aspinall has been getting lads out of there quick, and it's all first rounds and second rounds and all of that. But, you know, a lot of those lads, until he came to the UFC, were and even, you know, a few fights into the UFC, were always going to be out of there like that. I think this one, as I said, I think this one is going to be a little bit longer. I think it's going to be one where Aspinall is going to have to find his feet after that big injury. You know, it's funny because, like, he's coming off of a loss as well, which is like, he feels like he hasn't lost in the UFC, but, you know, he won't want to put back-to-back losses together, because when we think about it now, it's like, well, it wasn't really a loss, you know, it was an knee injury. But, like, when I'm reading out his Sherdog record here in 4 or 5 fights time, I'm just going to look at, he lost 2 fights in a row then, and yeah, if it happens. So I think you have to be a little bit more careful when that's the case. You know, you want to go in there and test out the knee and all of that. And I'm sure he's tested out in training as well, but it's not, you know, it's not the same. Could there be that extra little bit of ring rust coming in there? And like, I do think with Tybura as well, like, you look at his fights and a lot of them are long. Last 3 fights in a row all went to a decision. You know, he had a 3-fight stint in 2020. All 3 fights went to a decision. Now, he's a fighter that fights a little bit longer. He has, you know, 12 decision fights in his career. For a heavyweight, that's an awful lot. Now, you can look at the other side of it and say Aspinall has none, but I do think this one will go a little bit longer. Now, I'm not betting for this to go to a decision. Don't forget, it's only over a round and a half. Like, could Aspinall get to finish in the second round or in the third round? Yeah, absolutely. And it's 5 rounds as well. Don't forget that. So when you're fighting a 5-round pace, you do have to fight a little bit differently. So I like this bet. I really do. Usually you're talking about heavyweight fights and you divide this bet like the plague. But, you know, but I just think for the reasons I just gave, it'll either be a stupid play or a smart play by me, and I'll admit it next week. So we'll come back and we'll see next week. All right, bet number 5, the Flier of the week. And honestly, I went back and forth on this one because I had a few different bets. And when we get to the recap, maybe I'll get into them in a second. But I'm going for Andre Muniz to win by decision against Paul Craig. And I know my guy John Brannigan will absolutely kill me for picking against Paul Craig, but when you look through some of the prices and you see that he is plus 400 to win by decision, and I like that bet an awful lot. And the reason I like it, right, is because Craig to win by submission is plus 350. Muniz to win by submission is plus 140. Right? And I think it'll either be one of them wins by submission or they kind of like, you know, they dull each other out, that type of thing on the ground, and it will go along. Now, if that happens, right, so this is why it's called the Flier, right? So first choice, what would it be? I actually think this is my first choice, to be honest. But close to that first choice is one of them getting a submission. But like, I'll say it again, if they kind of do get to the fight to the ground, which I do think they will, and one of them's going for a submission here, one of them's going, they're both very good on the ground. I think Muniz is like more the old school kind of Gracie jiu-jitsu, you know, technical jiu-jitsu, I suppose. than Craig, who's a bit wild with it. But maybe is he more likely to catch a submission? If he is more wild and more likely to catch a submission, will that make Muniz a little bit more defensive? We've seen in the past Muniz has gone in there and has taken the foot off the pedal a little bit, and you're thinking like, okay, go to the next level and get the finish here, and he hasn't done it a few times. That's the sort of thing I'm looking for, right? And I'm looking at what I think is going to happen here, and this is look, if I'm picking this straight up, I'm picking Muniz to win by decision straight up. And when that bet is plus 400, I think that's a good flyer. I think Muniz will have an advantage in the wrestling. I don't think Paul Craig will necessarily need to be pulling guard and stuff in this fight. I think Muniz will take him down, will get on top, maybe take his back a couple of times. Now, Craig is often there to be finished, but it's usually with ground and pound and stuff like that. And, you know, when people do go to finish him with ground and pound, he'll catch him. But, like, Craig, you know, he's not too far away from Scotland. He'll have a large fan base here, I would guess. And Muniz, I'll say it again, he is a guy who will take his time. He won't rush with that big crowd against him as well. I like this one to go a little bit longer. You could hear the commentary going, top control, back control time here and all of that, and we might be having one of those arguments. Or on the other side of it, let's say neither of them want to go to the ground, or Muniz won't let it go to the ground. I think he'll win striking as well. So twofold there. I like Muniz. I like the fight to go a little bit longer. Muniz to win by decision plus 400. All right, those are the 5 bets for the week. Let's have a look through and look at some of the prices on both of the cards. Look, there's I suppose a merry-go-round of 145 in Cage Warriors this weekend, and all of them are kind of big enough favourites. Vucinic minus 649, Hardy Hardwick minus 400 in there. Where is Charrier? Charrier is minus 250. You know, I think that they have that right there. I think they have that just about right. And Luke Riley minus 450 as well. Here's the bet for you. How about a parlay of all 4 of them? And I'll do this on the fly here now. We'll see what the price of that is. So Vucinic, Riley, Charrier, and Hardwick. The parlay of the 4 of them is plus 147. So maybe a little bit of an interest there. Not a great look. A four leg parlay and plus 147 is not something I would ever advise. But if you want to, throw a $5 on, if you an extra bit of interest in Cage Warriors, I don't think that'll be a bad one there at all. The fight I'm looking at, and a price I really like as well, one of the bets I didn't give, Jesse O'Hullen minus 175. I do think he will beat Emil Brown, but that's my maybe fight of the weekend even. I absolutely love that fight. I like him there, so that's one bet that I would throw out there as well. Let's take a look at the UFC. The main event, obviously we spoke about the prop bet for that, but the straight up betting plus 350 for Tybura, minus 500 for Tom Aspinall. The overs, the unders are very interesting. I love that over 1.5 rounds, a plus 140. Do you want to push it a little bit more? Over 3.5 rounds is plus 400. Could it be? I don't know. I think that's very interesting. Or the fight to go to decision is plus 700. I do think it'll be a little bit longer. That's just my take on it now. I might be wrong, but I like the fight starts round 2 as well was the other bet I was looking at, and that's minus 110. And you know what? I really like that bet. The fight starts. You know what? I can't change it. I have it recorded now. I can't go back and change it. But I even like that bet a little bit more. You're not risking too much. Fight starts round 2 minus 110. Love that bet altogether. If you fancy the knockout, Aspinall is actually minus 150 to get the knockout. I like the Aspinall by submission bet plus 250. I like that. I gotta say, Tybura submission plus 400 plus 550 for the knockout for Tybura. Sorry, no, the Tybura is plus 1600 for the submission. I'm looking at him inside the distance is plus 400. Aspinall inside the distance is minus 350. So Jesus, Aspinall massive favorite here to get the job done. Wood and Feely, Wood a big favourite, minus 225 over Feely, plus 175. It's a bit of a step up again. Is the weight class right for Nathaniel Wood? I questioned that the last time, although he did get the finish in the end. I wouldn't bet him on that price. I think he has the quality. I think he's a better fighter than Andrew Feeney. I think he's a top quality fighter, but I just still have questions over featherweight for Nathaniel Wood, and let's see on that one. McCannon Stolyarenko. Stolyarenko, the big issue for her is going to be making this weight. Can she do it? Can she do it? She's fought at 145, hasn't she? Yeah, she was fighting Chelsea Chandler last time out, who we saw fighting at 145 last time. Hasn't she missed weight? It was actually 140 catch weight after she missed weight at 135. And now she's down at 125. Let's stick until Friday before we see this one. It's a massive fight for Molly. We haven't heard much from Molly since the last fight when she lost Aaron Blanchfield. What has she been doing? Where has she been training? The mental side of it with Molly is always a massive thing that she always talks about. It's another one. When you're betting on it, I would be avoiding that one. I don't think either of them are a great bet. Honestly, minus 250 on Molly, no way. Plus 200. If Stolyarenko makes weight and she looked good, that plus 200 changes. But I wouldn't be betting on this until Friday. I wouldn't even be looking at it. Straight up price for Muniz and Craig, minus 225 for Muniz, plus 175 for Craig. I think that's just about right. Ziam and Herbert. Herbert's now the underdog. That is, I'm pretty sure, changed. It has. Opened at minus 125, now plus 127 on a couple of books. So that has changed an awful lot. I like him at that. If you can get him at plus 127, I would take him at that. I see in one book he's plus 145, Joy Herbert. Joy Herbert's a good fighter. I like him in that fight. I like that. For me, one of the best fights of the weekend is Josh Kulabau and Lerone Murphy. Murphy in England is the favourite. Obviously, Kulabau coming over from Australia. Plus 120, minus 150 for Lerone Murphy. I do like this one to go long. Fight goes decision, minus 175 is the one I go for there. I honestly don't know who's going to win that fight. I really don't know. I think that's a high level fight in a very good division between two brilliant prospects. That's one of the fights. If you don't know what to look out for in this card, that's what to look out for. I'm telling you, Davy Grant is an underdog against Daniel Marcos. Davy Grant has made money for a lot of people before, and he might do it again, plus 120. Love the Alvarez versus Jacasey fight as well. Minus 200 for Alvarez, plus 163 for Jacasey. Do you know what I like here? I like the over 2.5 rounds at minus 110. I think this one's going to decision. Do you know what? I like Jacasey at plus 163 here as well. I think he's going to wrestle hard against Alvarez. Now, Alvarez is good on the ground as well, but I don't know. It depends what Jacasey shows up as always. If A1 best Jacasey shows up, he beats almost everyone in the division, I think. He's brilliant when he's at his best, but he's not always there. So, after that, we've a pick 'em fight between Roberts and Parsons. I'll go with Roberts in that one. I like Perez against Jafel Filo in another close fight. Mick Parkin has been training with the best heavyweights in the UK. He's plus 130. Interesting price there. Brian Barberena and Mukadov. I'm surprised they put Barberena in here. Odd kind of matchmaking. Massive underdog, minus 333 for Muradov against Barberena, plus 250. Yeah, Penny Kenzad against Vieira. I do think Vieira will win that, and I like the price at minus 163. Kenzad plus 130. I think that's too close. Then Chris Duncan, I like her as well. Him as well. I was thinking about Shauna Bannon at minus 150, and that Shauna Bannon price, as I gave earlier, at plus 120. So yeah, that is it. Those are the bets for the weekend. Let me recap my bets for the weekend. James Webb and Betholds-Fleminas over Cage Warriors, plus 110 and plus 120, respectively. Shauna Bannon opening up the UFC card, plus 120. Aspinall and Tybura to go over a round and a half at plus 140. And my flyer of the week is Andrea Muniz to win by decision at plus 400. Please bet responsibly. Don't go mad. Don't go overboard. Have fun with it. Let me know your bet in the comments section below, and enjoy the fights this weekend. From Sheehan from Sherdog.com. We'll see you all next time.